The card reader made that sound. You know the one. That sharp, mechanical beep that cuts through everything. But this wasn't at a grocery store or a gas station. This was at the altar. My ex-husband Robert's $75,000 dream wedding. 300 guests in designer clothes, crystal chandeliers dripping from the ceiling of the most exclusive hotel in the city, and a 25-year-old bride in a dress that cost more than most people's cars. The machine beeped again, declined. And I watched from the back of the room as Robert's face went from confident to confused to absolutely pale. The hotel manager, this poor guy in a crisp suit who definitely didn't get paid enough for this, cleared his throat into the microphone. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Robert, but there seems to be an issue with the final payment. The card has been declined." I'll never forget the way Bella looked at him. My replacement. The Instagram influencer with 200,000 fake followers and $0 in her actual bank account. She grabbed Robert's arm so hard her French manicure dug into his tuxedo sleeve, and she hissed, loud enough that the front row could hear. "Robert, fix this. My parents are watching." Oh, I was watching too. I'd been watching for 6 months. Watching him drain my corporate card. Watching him book the presidential suite, the imported roses, the ice sculpture shaped like their initials. Watching him play millionaire with my money while telling everyone he'd made it big in investments. Robert fumbled for another card, his hands shaking now, and handed it to the manager with this desperate little laugh. "Try this one," he said, like it was all just a silly mistake. The manager swiped it. The room held its breath. Beep. Declined. That's when I stepped forward. I'd been standing in the shadows near the back exit, wearing the most expensive thing I owned, a black dress that cost more than Robert's first car, and holding my phone in my hand like a weapon. I walked slowly down the aisle, my heels clicking on the marble floor, and every head turned. Robert saw me. His mouth fell open. Bella saw me. Her eyes went wide with this beautiful, perfect panic, and I smiled. God, I smiled so wide my face hurt. "It's not a mistake, Robert," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I canceled every single one of your cards this morning at 9 a.m. Every card that was attached to my company, my money, my accounts." I held up my phone, showing him the screen with the banking app still open, the cancellation confirmations glowing like little victory flags. "And by the way, the FBI is about 20 minutes out. They're very interested in discussing the $200,000 you embezzled to pay for this circus." The room exploded. Whispers turned into gasps, turned into full conversations. Bella started screaming, actually screaming, at Robert, demanding to know what I was talking about. The hotel manager looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. And Robert just stood there, frozen at the altar in his $1,000 tuxedo that he'd bought with my money, realizing that his entire fantasy was crashing down in front of 300 people. But here's the thing. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't some crazy ex-wife moment. This was 6 months of planning, 6 months of watching him spend, letting him dig his own grave deeper and deeper, waiting for the exact perfect moment to pull the trigger. And if you think that card getting declined was satisfying, oh, honey, you have no idea what I did to get here. Because Robert didn't just steal my money. He stole 2 years of my life, my trust, and my peace of mind. And I was about to take everything from him. 6 months earlier, I was still married to a man I thought I knew. Robert Thompson, 48 years old, great smile, expensive taste, and absolutely zero work ethic. When I met him 12 years ago, he told me he was between ventures. That's rich person code for unemployed, but I didn't care. I was building my logistics company from the ground up, working 18-hour days, and honestly, it was nice to come home to someone who had dinner ready and didn't complain about my schedule. I thought he was supportive. Turns out, he was just lazy and calculating. Very, very calculating. By year 10 of our marriage, my company was worth $40 million. I had 3 warehouses, 200 employees, and contracts with major retailers up and down the East Coast. Robert had a golf membership, a luxury car I bought him, and a title he loved to throw around at parties, entrepreneur. Except he never actually entrepreneured anything. He'd go to networking events that were really just boozy lunches. He'd take business trips that showed up on our credit card as beach resorts and five-star hotels. And I let it happen because I was too busy actually working to notice that my husband had become a professional spending decoration. Then came March 15th, the day I found the text messages. I wasn't snooping. His phone was on the kitchen counter and it lit up while I was making coffee. "Can't wait to see you tonight, Daddy," from someone named Bella. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I was going to be sick right there on the marble countertop. I picked up his phone, no passcode, because Robert was arrogant enough to think I'd never check. And what I found wasn't just one affair. It was 6 months of messages, hotel receipts, photos of them together in lingerie I definitely didn't own. She was 25, young enough to be his daughter, and dumb enough to think his money was actually his. I didn't confront him immediately. That's not how you win. Instead, I called my attorney, the best divorce lawyer in 3 states, and I filed papers that afternoon. When Robert came home that night, all smiles and fake kisses, I handed him the envelope. "We're done," I said. "No tears, no dramatics, just facts." His face went through this whole journey, shock, denial, and then this ugly sneer I'd never seen before. "You think you can just throw me away," he said. "I gave you the best years of my life. I supported your career while you ignored me." I almost laughed. He supported my career, the man who hadn't worked a real job since Bush was president? But I didn't say anything. I just pointed to the door. Here's where it gets interesting. Robert didn't just accept the divorce. Oh no. He played the victim. In court, he showed up in a cheap suit, not the designer ones I bought him, and cried actual tears about how I'd controlled all the finances and left him with nothing. His lawyer painted me as this cold, career-obsessed woman who'd financially abused her poor, helpless husband. It was such complete bullshit that I wanted to scream. But the judge? The judge was old school. He looked at Robert's sad puppy eyes and awarded him temporary spousal support while the asset division was being finalized. $12,000 a month. Plus, and this is the part that made my blood boil, continued access to one corporate credit card for essential living expenses only. I walked out of that courthouse shaking with rage. My attorney tried to calm me down, saying it was temporary, saying we'd win in the final settlement, but I barely heard her. Because through the courthouse windows, I could see Robert in the parking lot. He wasn't crying anymore. He was on his phone, laughing, practically bouncing with excitement. And then I saw her, Bella, pulling up in a car that was definitely too expensive for an influencer with a failing Instagram account. Robert climbed in, and before they drove away, I heard him say it, clear as day, windows down, not caring who heard. "The old bitch is gonna pay for everything. Our dream wedding, babe. She's funding the whole thing and doesn't even know it yet." That's when something inside me shifted. Not broke, shifted, like a lock clicking into place. He thought I was stupid. He thought I wouldn't notice, and that was going to be his biggest mistake. The alert started 3 days later. I was in a meeting with a potential client, a major retail chain that could have been a 7-figure contract, when my phone started buzzing on the table. Once, twice, 3 times. I ignored it at first, but then I glanced down and saw the notification. Tiffany & Co., $15,000, corporate card ending in 4721. My corporate card, the one the judge said Robert could use for essential living expenses. I excused myself from the meeting, walked into the hallway, and pulled up my banking app with hands that were surprisingly steady. The transactions were rolling in like a horror movie you can't look away from. Luxury bridal boutique, $8,500. Resort and spa, deposit, $20,000. Premium catering services, $12,000. Each one felt like a slap across the face. He wasn't just using my card. He was financing his entire wedding to his mistress with my money. The money I'd earned by working 70-hour weeks while he played golf and pretended to have business meetings. I scrolled through the list, my jaw getting tighter with each line item. Dom Perignon champagne, ice sculptures, a fucking string quartet. This wasn't a wedding. This was a coronation, and I was paying for it. I called my attorney immediately. Jennifer picked up on the first ring. She knew that tone in my voice. "He's using the corporate card for wedding expenses," I said, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Thousands of dollars, Jen. He's buying his mistress an engagement ring with my company's money." There was a pause on the other end, and then Jennifer said exactly what I expected. "Cancel the card. Right now. We have grounds for immediate revocation because he's violating the court order. This isn't essential living expenses." She was right. It would be easy. One phone call to the bank and Robert's little fantasy would come crashing down today. But something stopped me. I sat there in that corporate hallway, staring at my phone, watching another alert come through. Floral design studio, $6,000. And instead of rage, I felt something else. Something cold and calculating that settled in my chest like ice water. "No," I said slowly. "Don't cancel it yet." Jennifer sounded confused. "Diana, if we don't act now..." I said no. I was thinking fast now, my mind running through possibilities like I was planning a hostile takeover. If I cancel the card today, he'll panic. He'll find another way to pay for this circus. He'll borrow from friends, max out personal credit cards, maybe even convince that idiot girl's parents to foot the bill. But if I let him keep spending... I pulled up the hotel's website on my phone. The Grand Rothschild Hotel, 5-star luxury. I'd been there once for a corporate event, and I remembered something important from the contract we'd signed. "Jen, what's the hotel policy on wedding deposits?" I asked. She was quiet for a moment. I could hear her typing. "Most luxury hotels require 50% upfront, and the remaining balance due on the day of the event, usually processed right before or during the ceremony." Bingo. So if his card gets declined on the wedding day, in front of all his guests... "Diana," Jennifer's voice had changed. She understood now. That's diabolical." I smiled. "That's business." "Let him spend," I said, my voice steady and cold. "Let him commit. Let him sign contracts and make promises and tell everyone he's some big-shot investor. Let him rack up every single dollar on that card. The more he spends, the deeper the hole he digs. And when that final payment comes due, when he's standing at the altar in front of 300 people..." I paused, savoring the image. "And that's when I pull the plug." Jennifer was silent for a long moment. "You realize this means watching him spend potentially over $100,000 of your money?" "It's not about the money," I said. "I'll make that back in a month. This is about something bigger." It was about watching a parasite finally face consequences. It was about making sure that when Robert fell, he fell so hard and so publicly that he'd never get back up. Over the next 3 months, I watched Robert spend my money like a kid in a candy store with someone else's credit card, because that's exactly what he was. Every morning, I'd wake up, pour my coffee, and check the banking app before I even got dressed. It became a ritual. A dark, twisted ritual that probably wasn't healthy, but God, it was satisfying. Destination wedding planner, $18,000. Custom tuxedo fitting, $4,500. Honeymoon suite, upgrade, $12,000. The numbers kept climbing, and with each transaction, I felt this cold satisfaction settling deeper into my bones. Robert was living his fantasy. I knew this because Bella couldn't keep her mouth shut on social media. She posted everything. Instagram stories of champagne tastings with the caption, "Only the best for our special day." TikTok videos of her trying on designer shoes with "Future wife are living my best life." She even did a YouTube vlog called "Wedding Planning with My Millionaire Fiancé" that made me laugh so hard I almost choked on my wine. Millionaire. The man had $400 in his personal checking account. I'd checked. But he'd convinced everyone, her family, their friends, that he'd made a killing in tech investments and was now living off his portfolio. The lies were so elaborate I almost admired the creativity. What Robert didn't know was that I'd hired a forensic accountant. Not for the divorce, well, partially for the divorce, but mainly to document every single fraudulent transaction. My accountant, Margaret, was a 60-year-old woman who looked like someone's sweet grandmother, but had the investigative instincts of a bloodhound. She sent me weekly reports, meticulously categorized. Personal luxury items purchased with corporate funds, $47,000. Wedding-related expenses, $89,000. Unexplained cash withdrawals, $23,000. By mid-June, the total had hit $150,000. $150,000 that Robert had stolen from my company to fund his midlife crisis wedding. "This is embezzlement," Margaret told me during one of our meetings, sliding the report across her desk. He signed the corporate card agreement stating it would only be used for business purposes or essential living expenses. Wedding venues and engagement rings don't qualify. "You could have him arrested right now." She looked at me over her reading glasses, waiting for my response. I picked up the report, flipped through the pages of evidence, and smiled. "Not yet," I said. "He's not done spending." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Diana, the longer you wait, the more money." "I know," I interrupted. "But I want him all in. I want him so committed to this fantasy that there's no way out." See, here's what I understood about Robert that nobody else did. He was a narcissist who couldn't stand losing face. His entire identity was built on this image of being successful, wealthy, sophisticated. If I shut him down quietly, he'd spin some story. He'd tell people I was vindictive, that I'd sabotaged him out of jealousy, that he was the real victim. But if I let him build this massive, expensive, public display of wealth, and then I pulled the rug out, there would be no explaining that away. No sympathy, just pure, undeniable humiliation in front of everyone who mattered to him. The wedding was scheduled for September 23rd, a Saturday, peak wedding season. The Grand Rothschild Hotel, ballroom capacity 300 guests, overlooking the city skyline. Bella had posted the Save the Date cards on Instagram, custom designed with gold leaf and their faces embossed on heavy cardstock that probably cost $15 per invitation. Robert had told people he was sparing no expense for the love of his life. Meanwhile, I was getting daily reports of him at the hotel doing tastings, approving floral arrangements, and meeting with the wedding planner like he was royalty. The hotel coordinator had even called my office once, thinking I was still his wife, to confirm some detail about the payment schedule. That's when I learned the most beautiful piece of information. The final payment of $75,000 was due on the day of the wedding, processed at 11 d.am, 1 hour before the ceremony. I marked it on my calendar in red pen. September 23rd, 11 d.am, the day Robert's world would end. And the best part? He had no idea I was coming. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. I came home from work, exhausted from negotiating a contract that would net my company $3 million. And there it was in my mailbox. A thick, cream-colored envelope with my name written in that pretentious calligraphy that costs extra. For a second, I just stared at it, not quite believing what I was seeing. Then I opened it, and I swear to God, I started laughing right there in my driveway. Mr. Robert Thompson and Ms. Bella Rose request the honor of your presence at their wedding celebration. My name was on the guest list, Diana Chen Thompson. He'd actually invited me to watch him marry his mistress. But it wasn't just the invitation that made my blood sing with vindication. It was the note. A handwritten card slipped inside the envelope, in Robert's distinctive chicken scratch handwriting. Diana, I know this might seem unconventional, but I wanted to invite you to witness the beginning of my new life. Bella and I have found something real, something built on joy rather than obligation. I hope you can be happy for us. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see what true love looks like when you're not working 24/7. Come see how Bella looks in a dress that actually fits the occasion. She knows how to appreciate the finer things. R. I read it 3 times. Each time, I felt that cold fury building higher in my chest. The arrogance, the sheer breathtaking arrogance of this man. He'd cheated on me, stolen from my company, lied to a judge, and now he was inviting me to his wedding with a note that basically said, "Watch me enjoy your money with a younger, prettier replacement." Any normal person would have torn that invitation into pieces and blocked his number forever. But I'm not normal. I'm strategic. And Robert had just handed me the best gift he possibly could have: legal access to his wedding. See, if I'd just shown up uninvited, hotel security could have removed me. But with an invitation, with my name on the official guest list, I had every right to be there. I called Jennifer immediately. "He invited me," I said, holding the invitation like it was made of gold. "Robert actually invited me to his wedding." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "You're kidding." "I'm not. And Jen, I'm going." Another pause. "Diana, I'm not sure that's—" "I'm going," I repeated, firmer this time. "Because this invitation gives me legal standing to be present. He can't claim I was trespassing or harassing him. He invited me. And I'm going to watch him sign a $75,000 contract he can't pay for, in front of 300 witnesses." I could hear Jennifer smiling through the phone now. "You're terrifying, you know that." "I've been told." The next morning, I sat down at my computer and filled out the RSVP card. Diana Chen Thompson. Attending, yes. Number of guests, 1. Dietary restrictions, none. Looking forward to celebrating with you both. I put it in the mail that same day. And then I did something I hadn't done in 6 months. I went shopping. Not for groceries or business clothes. I went to the designer boutique downtown, the one where CEOs and politicians' wives shop when they need to make a statement. I tried on dresses for 2 hours until I found the perfect one. Black. Fitted. Expensive enough that you could tell it cost more than most people's rent. The kind of dress that says, "I'm not here to blend in." When the sales associate rang it up, she asked what the occasion was. "A funeral," I said with a smile. She looked confused. Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss." I handed her my credit card, my personal card, not the corporate one Robert was draining. "Don't be," I said. "It's going to be beautiful." September 23rd arrived like any other Saturday, except it wasn't. I woke up at 5 a.m., even though the wedding wasn't until noon. I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing through every detail, every possible scenario, making sure I hadn't missed anything. I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and pulled out the file folder I'd been building for 6 months. Bank statements, transaction records, signed court documents stating the corporate card was for essential expenses only. Emails from Robert's attorney claiming he had no access to liquid funds. And then, stapled to the back, Margaret's forensic accounting report showing exactly where every stolen dollar had gone. The evidence was airtight, bulletproof, devastating. At 8:30 a.m., I called my bank, the same bank where I'd had accounts for 15 years, where I'd financed my first warehouse, where the manager knew me by name. "Good morning, Ms. Chen. How can I help you today?" Marcus asked, his voice warm and professional. "Marcus, I need to cancel all additional cardholder access on my corporate account, effective immediately," I said. There was a pause. That would be the card issued to Robert Thompson. Correct. Correct. Another pause. Longer this time. Miss Chen, I need to inform you that there are several pending transactions on that card. Large amounts. If we cancel now, those transactions will be declined when they attempt to process. I smiled at my reflection in the kitchen window. I know, Marcus. That's exactly what I want. Are you absolutely certain? He asked, and I could hear the concern in his voice. Once I execute this, there's no reversing it for 24 hours. Any charges he attempts to make will be immediately declined. I thought about Robert standing at the altar in his expensive tuxedo. I thought about Bella in her designer wedding dress, the one that cost more than my first car. I thought about 300 guests watching, waiting, expecting a fairy tale. Marcus, I said, my voice steady as steel. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Cancel every card, block every transaction, and timestamp it for exactly 9 Madarem. He was quiet for a moment, and then I heard the keyboard clicking. Done. All corporate card access for Robert Thompson has been terminated as of 9 Madarem, September 23rd. He's been completely cut off from your accounts. I hung up and sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. Somewhere across the city, Robert was probably getting ready. Putting on his tuxedo, fixing his hair, practicing his vows, completely oblivious to the fact that his financial access had just evaporated. The hotel would try to process that final $75,000 payment at 11 Noadem, 2 hours from now. And when they did, the card would be declined. Not because of insufficient funds, my company had plenty of money, but because Robert Thompson no longer had permission to touch a single cent of it. The realization must have felt good, because I laughed. Actually laughed out loud in my empty kitchen. At 10 Tandayam, I got dressed. I took my time with my makeup, my hair, every detail perfect. The black dress fit like it was made for me, because it basically was, tailored to exact specifications. I put on the diamond earrings I'd bought myself when my company hit its first million in revenue. The heels that made me 3 inches taller and made a very specific clicking sound when I walked on marble. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Not because I looked different, but because of what I saw in my eyes. Power. Control. Certainty. Robert had spent 12 years underestimating me. Today, he was going to learn exactly how big of a mistake that was. I arrived at the Grand Rothschild Hotel at 11:15 a.m., fashionably late, but not suspicious. The valet took my car, and I walked through those massive glass doors into the lobby like I owned the place. The wedding coordinator was rushing around with a clipboard, directing vendors and checking details. She didn't even notice me. I made my way to the ballroom, the Valencia Ballroom, their most expensive venue, and stopped at the entrance. The doors were open just enough that I could see inside without being obvious. And oh God, it was even more extravagant than I'd imagined. White roses everywhere, thousands of them, probably. Crystal chandeliers reflecting light like diamonds. Tables draped in silk with gold charger plates at every seat. A string quartet playing softly in the corner. An ice sculpture in the shape of intertwined hearts that must have cost a fortune and was already starting to melt under the lights. This wasn't a wedding. This was a monument to excess. A temple built to Robert's ego and paid for with my money. I checked my watch, 11:17 a.m. Any minute now, the hotel would try to process that final payment. Any minute now, everything Robert had built would come crashing down. I found a spot near the back of the room, partially hidden by a decorative column, and I waited. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. This was it. This was the moment I'd been planning for 6 months, and I wasn't going to miss a single second of it. The ceremony started at exactly noon. I watched Robert walk down the aisle with his best man, some guy from his golf club who probably thought Robert was actually wealthy, and take his position at the altar. He looked confident, relaxed, like a man who had everything figured out. His tuxedo was perfect, his hair was styled just right, and he had this smug little smile on his face that made me want to scream. But I didn't. I just stood there in the back, half hidden by my column, and waited. The music changed, and everyone stood as Bella appeared at the entrance. I'll give her credit. She looked stunning. The dress was gorgeous, all lace and crystals, and a train that went on for miles. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a princess from a fairy tale, walking toward her Prince Charming, who was secretly a broke, lying con artist living on stolen money. They were about 3 minutes into the ceremony when I saw him. The hotel manager, a man in his 50s wearing a suit that was slightly too tight, holding a tablet and looking absolutely terrified. He was standing near the side entrance of the ballroom, whispering urgently to one of the coordinators. She shook her head, pointing toward the altar, clearly telling him to wait. But he didn't wait. He walked straight down the side aisle, his footsteps echoing despite the music, and headed directly for Robert. The officiant was in the middle of talking about love and commitment when the manager reached the altar. He leaned in close to Robert and whispered something. I couldn't hear it from where I was standing, but I saw Robert's face change. The confidence vanished. His smile dropped. He pulled back and said, loud enough that the first few rows could hear, "What do you mean there's a problem?" The manager's face was bright red. He clearly wanted to be anywhere else on earth. "Sir, I apologize, but there's an issue with the final payment. The card on file has been declined." The whole room went silent. The string quartet stopped playing. 300 people collectively held their breath. Robert laughed, this nervous, high-pitched laugh that didn't sound like him at all. "That's impossible," he said. "There must be some mistake. Try it again." The manager nodded quickly, pulled out a portable card reader from his jacket pocket, and swiped the card right there at the altar. We all heard it. That sharp electronic beep. The screen flashed red. Declined. Bella's hand shot out and grabbed Robert's arm. "Robert!" she hissed, her voice barely a whisper, but somehow carrying through the microphone clipped to the officiant's lapel. "What's happening? Fix this. My parents are watching." Robert's hands were shaking as he reached into his jacket and pulled out his wallet. I watched him fumble through cards, 3, 4, 5 of them, before selecting one, a black card, the kind that's supposed to signal unlimited wealth and elite status. He handed it to the manager with a forced smile. "This one," he said, trying to sound casual. "I must have given you the wrong one before." The manager took it, swiped it, and again we all waited. 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours. Beep. Declined. Someone in the third row gasped. Bella's mother stood up halfway, looking confused. Robert's face was no longer pale. It was gray. The color of someone realizing they're about to be exposed in the worst possible way. "Sir," the manager said quietly, "without payment, I'm required to inform you that the catering team has been instructed to stop all service immediately. The buffet will not be served. The bar will be closed, and—" "What?" Bella's voice cracked through the ballroom like a whip. She wasn't whispering anymore. "You're telling me there's no food? No drinks? Robert, what the hell is going on?" Behind me, I heard the side doors open. Hotel staff in white uniforms started entering the ballroom, moving toward the tables where champagne glasses were already poured and waiting. They began collecting them, one by one, taking the glasses right off the tables, removing the ice buckets, dismantling the carefully arranged buffet stations in full view of everyone. It was like watching a movie being played in reverse, the fantasy dissolving in real time. That's when I decided it was time. I stepped out from behind my column and started walking down the center aisle, slowly, my heels clicking on the marble floor with each deliberate step. Every head turned. Robert saw me, and his eyes went so wide I thought they might actually fall out of his skull. "Diana?" he breathed. And even without a microphone, the acoustics in that ballroom carried his voice perfectly. I stopped about 10 feet from the altar, close enough that everyone could see me clearly, but far enough that I looked composed, powerful, in control. "Hi, Robert," I said, my voice clear and steady. "Surprised to see me? You did invite me, after all." I held up the invitation, still in my purse, and waved it slightly. I wouldn't miss this for the world. Bella was staring at me like I'd just crawled out of hell. "Who the fuck is this?" she demanded, looking between me and Robert. "This is Diana," Robert said weakly. "My ex-wife." "Your what?" Bella's voice went up an octave. I smiled at her. "Oh, honey, didn't he tell you? I'm the one who pays for everything. The cars, the trips, the golf memberships, this wedding. Well," I paused, savoring the moment. I was paying for everything. Until 9 Kakwriam. This morning when I canceled every single card attached to my accounts. Every card Robert's been using to pretend he's a millionaire. The room exploded into whispers. Robert tried to speak, but nothing came out. And I wasn't done yet. Bella turned on Robert so fast I'm surprised she didn't get whiplash. Her face had gone from bridal glow to pure rage in about 3 seconds flat. "You told me you owned a tech company," she said, her voice shaking. "You told me you sold it for millions. You said the money was yours." Robert opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish gasping for air. "Bella, I can explain." "Explain?" She grabbed the front of his tuxedo, pulling him close enough that their faces were inches apart. "Explain how we're standing at the altar with no food, no drinks, and 300 people watching us. Explain how your cards are getting declined like some broke college kid." I could have stayed quiet. I could have let Robert dig himself out of this hole. But where's the fun in that? I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder I'd brought, the one with 6 months of bank statements, all meticulously highlighted by Margaret. "Here," I said, walking closer and dropping it at Bella's feet like I was serving legal papers. "Since he won't explain, let me help. Those are the transaction records from my corporate credit card, the one Robert had access to for unessential living expenses per our divorce agreement. Scroll down to March and start reading." Bella bent down, picked up the folder with shaking hands, and opened it. Her eyes scanned the first page, then the second. I watched her face change as she realized what she was looking at. "Tiffany's $15,000, she read aloud, her voice getting quieter. That's my engagement ring." She looked up at Robert, who had gone completely silent. "Bridal boutique, $8,000. This hotel deposit, $20,000. Her voice was rising again now. "Robert, this says the account holder is Diana Chen Thompson. This is her card. You've been using her money?" She flipped through more pages, and I watched her hands start to shake. $150,000, she whispered. "You spent $150,000 of your ex-wife's money on our wedding." The way she said ex-wife was so full of venom I almost felt bad for her. Almost. "And that's not even the best part," I said, crossing my arms. "Tell her, Robert. Tell her how much is in your personal checking account." Robert's jaw clenched. He didn't answer, so I did. $400. That's it. $400 to his name. No investments. No tech company. No portfolio. Just $400 and a really good ability to lie. I turned to look at Bella directly now. "You thought you were marrying a millionaire, but you're actually marrying a parasite who's been living off me for 12 years. And now he's about to be charged with corporate embezzlement because he stole from my company to finance this little fantasy." Bella's bouquet hit the floor. White roses scattered across the marble like snow. "You told me you were rich," she said to Robert, her voice breaking. "You showed me your car, your watch, your clothes. You took me to expensive restaurants. You—" She stopped, realization dawning across her face. Oh my God, none of it was real. None of it was yours. Robert finally found his voice. Bella, listen to me. We can fix this. I can fix this, she screamed. How are you going to fix this? We have 300 people here. The hotel wants $75,000. My parents flew in from Florida. I posted about this wedding on Instagram for 6 months. She was crying now, black mascara running down her cheeks, destroying that perfect bridal makeup. Behind us, the whispers had turned into full conversations. Bella's mother was standing now, demanding to know what was happening. Robert's best man had backed away from the altar, like Robert had a contagious disease. The wedding photographer, a young guy with an expensive camera, had stopped taking pictures and was just watching with his mouth open. It was chaos. Beautiful. Perfect chaos. And then Bella did something I didn't expect. She yanked the engagement ring off her finger, that $15,000 Tiffany ring, and threw it at Robert's chest. It bounced off his boutonniere and clattered onto the floor. "We're done," she said, her voice suddenly cold and clear. "And I'm not marrying a liar. I'm not marrying a thief. And I'm sure as hell not marrying someone who's about to go to prison." "Prison?" Robert's voice cracked. "Diana, what is she talking about?" I smiled. Oh, this was the part I'd been waiting for. "Well, Robert, here's the thing. When you signed the corporate card agreement, you agreed that it would only be used for authorized business expenses. The judge's order said essential living expenses, which legally means food, utilities, basic housing costs. Not wedding venues, not engagement rings, not honeymoon suites. Every single transaction you made was fraud. And when you forged my signature on those hotel contracts claiming to be acting on behalf of my company, that's embezzlement, corporate embezzlement, which is a federal crime." I checked my watch. "And the FBI should be arriving in about, 15 minutes. I called them 3 days ago." The color drained from Robert's face so fast I thought he might actually faint. You called the FBI?" "I did," I said cheerfully. "I also provided them with 6 months of documentation, witness statements, and a forensic accounting report that shows exactly how much you stole and where it went. They were very interested. Apparently, corporate embezzlement cases with this much clear evidence are pretty rare. You made their job really easy." Robert looked around the ballroom like he was searching for an escape route, but there was none. Hotel security had quietly appeared at all the exits. The manager had clearly called them when the cards started declining. Robert was trapped. Bella was backing away from him now, holding her dress up so she wouldn't trip on the train. "I can't believe this," she kept saying. "I can't believe this is happening." Her maid of honor rushed forward to help her, and together they started moving toward the exit. "Bella, wait!" Robert called out, his voice desperate. But she didn't stop. She didn't even look back. She just kept walking, faster and faster, until she was running in her wedding dress, her veil flying behind her like a white flag of surrender. The side door slammed shut behind her with an echo that rang through the entire ballroom. And just like that, the bride was gone. The FBI arrived exactly when I said they would. 2 agents in dark suits walked into the ballroom like they'd done this 1,000 times before, flashing their badges to hotel security and heading straight for Robert. "Mr. Robert Thompson?" the taller one asked, though it was clearly rhetorical. Robert was still standing at the altar in his tuxedo, frozen like a statue. "We need you to come with us. You're being arrested for embezzlement, fraud, and wire fraud related to unauthorized use of corporate funds." The agent pulled out handcuffs, and I swear I heard someone in the crowd gasp. This wasn't some TV drama. This was real federal agents arresting someone at their own wedding. Robert's legs seemed to give out. He grabbed onto the altar to steady himself. "This is a mistake," he said weakly. "I didn't. Diana, tell them this is a misunderstanding." I tilted my head, pretending to consider it. "No, I don't think I will." They cuffed him right there, right at the altar where he was supposed to be getting married. The shorter agent read him his Miranda rights while 300 wedding guests watched in complete silence. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Robert's best man had disappeared. Completely vanished. I looked around and couldn't find him anywhere. He'd probably slipped out a side door the second he saw the FBI badges. Smart man. Robert's parents were still there, though, sitting in the front row looking absolutely shell-shocked. His mother was crying. His father just stared straight ahead like he couldn't process what he was seeing. I almost felt bad for them. Almost. But then I remembered that they'd raised this man, enabled his behavior, and probably knew exactly what kind of person he was. As the agents led Robert toward the exit, he looked at me one last time, not with anger, not even with hatred, with something worse, disbelief. Like he genuinely couldn't understand how I'd done this to him. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why would you destroy me like this?" I walked closer, close enough that only he could hear me. "Because you thought I was stupid," I said quietly. "You thought you could steal from me, humiliate me, and walk away into your little fantasy life while I just, what, paid for it with a smile? You underestimated me, Robert. That was your first mistake. Thinking I wouldn't notice was your second, and inviting me to watch you celebrate with my money." I smiled. "That was your last." The agents pushed him forward, and he stumbled slightly, the handcuffs making it hard to balance. They walked him through the ballroom, past all those decorated tables with the silk cloths and gold plates, past the melting ice sculpture, past the empty champagne flutes that would never be filled. The guests parted like the Red Sea, nobody wanting to get too close to a man being arrested by the FBI. When they reached the main doors, Robert turned his head one more time, looking back at the altar, at the life he'd tried to build on lies and stolen money. And then he was gone. The doors closed behind them, and the ballroom erupted into noise, everyone talking at once, pulling out their phones, probably already texting their friends about the craziest wedding disaster they'd ever witnessed. I stood there for a moment, letting it all sink in. 6 months of planning. 6 months of watching him spend my money, letting him dig deeper and deeper, and it had worked. It had worked even better than I'd imagined. Robert wasn't just embarrassed, he was ruined, publicly arrested at his own wedding, his reputation destroyed, his freedom gone. And the best part? Every single person in this room would tell this story. They'd tell their friends, their families, their co-workers. Robert Thompson would be a legend, but not the kind he wanted to be. He'd be the cautionary tale, the con artist who got caught, the fool who thought he could steal from his ex-wife and get away with it. I walked over to the hotel bar, the one the staff had been dismantling when Robert's cards declined. There was one bottle of champagne left, sitting in an ice bucket that nobody had claimed yet. I pulled out my personal credit card, the one that actually had my money on it, and handed it to the bartender. "I'll take that bottle," I said. "And whatever I just paid for, consider it a tip for the show." He looked confused but ran my card anyway. I took the champagne, poured myself a glass, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear the guests still buzzing, the hotel manager frantically making phone calls, the coordinator trying to figure out what to do with 300 people and no wedding. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd done what I came to do. And now? Now I was going home. 3 months later, I signed the final divorce papers in my attorney's office. The judge had ruled in my favor on everything, which wasn't surprising considering my ex-husband was currently sitting in a federal prison awaiting trial. I got the house, the cars, my company remained untouched, and Robert was ordered to pay back every cent of the $159,000 he'd stolen. Not that he had any way to do that from a prison cell, but the principle mattered. Jennifer slid the papers across her desk with a smile. "How does it feel?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment. It didn't feel like victory, exactly. It felt like closure, like finally cutting off a diseased limb that had been draining me for years. "It feels like I can breathe again," I said. The house sold 2 weeks later, the one Robert and I had lived in, where he'd spent 12 years pretending to be a partner while actually being a parasite. I listed it at market value and it sold in 4 days, multiple offers, all cash. I took the profit, every single dollar of it, and split it between my company's expansion fund and a donation to a women's business scholarship program. Robert would have hated that. The idea that his house money went to helping women build their own empires instead of depending on men like him. That made it even sweeter. I kept one thing from the house, though. A photo from our wedding day, 12 years ago. Not because I missed him or felt nostalgic, but because I framed it and put it on my office wall with a little plaque underneath that reads, "Trust your instincts. They're usually right." I ran into Bella once, about a month after the wedding disaster. Pure coincidence. We were at the same coffee shop downtown. She saw me and froze, her face going pale like she'd seen a ghost. I could have ignored her. Could have walked past and pretended she didn't exist, but I didn't. I walked right up to her table. "How are you doing?" I asked, and I meant it genuinely. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair in a messy bun, wearing sweatpants like she hadn't left her apartment in weeks. "I'm surviving," she said quietly. I deleted all my social media. Couldn't handle everyone asking about the wedding. I nodded. "That's probably smart." There was an awkward pause. Then she asked, "Did you know? When you came to the wedding, did you know he'd be arrested?" I thought about lying. But what was the point? "Yes," I said. "I knew everything." She looked down at her coffee cup. "I should hate you." "You probably should," I agreed. "But I didn't do this to you, Bella. Robert did. I just made sure he faced consequences." She was quiet for a long moment, and then she said something I didn't expect. "Thank you." I raised an eyebrow. "For ruining your wedding?" She laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "For saving me from marrying him. As for Robert, last I heard, he's looking at 3 to 5 years in federal prison. His attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the evidence was too solid. Margaret's forensic report, the bank records, the signed agreements he'd violated, there was no defense. He'll probably serve 2 years if he behaves himself. And when he gets out, he'll have a felony record, no money, no reputation, and no one willing to trust him again. Sometimes I wonder if he thinks about that moment at the altar. The moment the card declined and his whole world started crashing down. Does he regret it? Does he wish he'd just been honest, worked a real job, built something legitimate? Or does he still think he was the victim, that I was the vindictive ex-wife who ruined his life out of jealousy? Honestly, I don't care. He's not my problem anymore. I'm standing in my new office now, the one in the expanded warehouse we just opened last month. My company doubled in size this year. Turns out, when you're not financially supporting a parasite, you have a lot more capital to invest in growth. We just signed contracts with 2 major retailers and hired 50 new employees. My accountant told me we're on track to hit $60 million in revenue this year. $60 million, built by me, with my ideas, my work, my sweat, and nobody can take that away. Nobody can pretend they built it. Nobody can steal it. It's mine. And that feeling? That's what victory actually tastes like. You know, they say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I disagree. Revenge is best served publicly, legally, and with perfect timing. Robert wanted an unforgettable wedding. I gave him one. Nobody who was in that ballroom will ever forget the day the groom got arrested at the altar because he tried to finance his fantasy with stolen money. And me. I'll never forget the sound of that card reader. Beep. Declined. It's the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. But here's what I keep thinking about. Diana had money, power and resources to fight back. But what about the people who don't? What about the girl who has nothing, no money, no power, no voice, and gets trapped in a situation where everyone underestimates her? Because that's exactly what happened to the girl in our next story. She slept in a basement. She cooked and cleaned for a family that treated her like unpaid labor. She wore hand-me-downs and ate leftovers while her siblings got new clothes and full plates. For 10 years, they told her she was lucky to have a roof over her head. But on her 18th birthday, a lawyer knocked on the door with a briefcase full of documents that proved everything they'd told her was a lie. She wasn't the charity case, she was the heir, and the family that had treated her like garbage, they were about to lose everything.